For many of us, making friends can be hard at any age, but especially as we grow older and life gets fuller and more complicated, our worlds can shrink, schedules overflow, and frankly, we're just more tired. Welcome to Friends After 40, a podcast about the friendships that find us not in our perfect moments, but in the midst of it all, the parenting, the grief, and everything else that middle age throws our way. My name is Robinette Jones. I'm a DJ and storyteller, and in August 2019, I relocated to a new city I knew almost nothing about, a city where I didn't have any close friendships. 6 months later, a global pandemic hit. I know. Confined as I was, as we all were, to my new home, I realized I wasn't totally sure how to build community anymore. I'd had the same small group of friends for decades, and now I'd recently turned 40, alone in a new place and quarantined. It was pretty scary. That's why I created this show. To find others like me with knee sleeves and clicky hips, awkward at the party. And I wanted to answer the question, what does it take to build a meaningful, lasting connection now? In Friends After 40, each episode explores the origin story of two friends, how they met, what brought them together, and how their connection took root during moments of uncertainty, transition, or upheaval. In today's story, a connection that begins on a Zoom screen is molded by two of life's biggest transformations, death and rebirth. Here's how Mel Jay and Jay Stone built a friendship that could hold it all.
Friends after 40.
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 I just have such a clear memory now of like knocking on the door and it being the first time that we had seen each other in person.
Yeah.
It was so exciting. And I was also like, you look just like you do on Zoom. And here we are.
You're about to meet Mel and Jay. Jay is a historian of science living in West Philadelphia. Mel is a performing artist and parent of a toddler. When they first met, it wasn't in a coffee shop or at a dance party. It was early in the pandemic. And like so many new connections at the time, their friendship began on a screen. At first, it was just a feeling, a sense of recognition during a Zoom workshop, a spark that said, I want to know this person more. Neither of them knew how central they would become in each other's lives. Here's Jay.
So I was involved with organizing an unpacking gender workshop for Trans Day of Visibility. And that was happening all on Zoom. And then you came in like very close to the end, but like in this like very like glorious kind of way.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
So it was like...
It was so serious in there a little bit. I mean, I had integrity. I wasn't
I don't want to make it seem like you were like the class clown. Like, it was nice.
I think from the very beginning, in the way that you can in a Zoom situation feel a connection with somebody, I had a really good feeling about Jay.
I felt like I had a similar sort of hunch. And I think I get those feelings pretty fast.
Those feelings Jay experienced, that hunch, was strong enough to try a real-world hangout a few months later. In the middle of the pandemic, though, meeting in person wasn't just a next step. It was kind of a leap of faith. Here's Mel remembering that day.
There was a workshop by another gender organization. And I was like, oh, I'm going to ask Jay. Maybe Jay would want to go, yes, this is the perfect time to hang out with Jay. And then you said yes. And I just have such a clear memory now of like knocking on the door and it being the first time that we had seen each other It was so exciting. And I was also like, you look just like you do on Zoom. And here we are. But in the flesh, like the three-dimensionalized version of you. It was during COVID, so it was an outdoor workshop where everybody was spread out on blankets and most people still masked. There were like a few different things going on. And I remember feeling like really discombobulated and a little like feeling of Jay reminding me to like, oh, it's cool. We're good. It's great to meet you. I was learning about you that you could offer like your calm, even as I was kind of struggling to maintain my focus. That's really grounding to me.
Yeah, I think in the moment, I just felt like I was going with the flow. But even before meeting in person, it felt like you were kind of inviting me into your world.
After that outdoor workshop, Mel and Jay tried to spend more time together. But again and again, COVID scares kept canceling their plans. So they found another way to stay connected. They started sending voice memos back and forth to each other. What began as quick check-ins slowly became something deeper. And it was in these voice recordings that Jay first shared the news that would change everything. Their father was sick.
It was complicated. He'd been sick a long time. So it had been weighing on me really like for years, his health. You know, I didn't have a ton of friends who had experienced any version of that. So I think it meant a lot to be able to talk to you about it, Mel. I actually found out he was sick even longer than I'd realized. But he had a rare blood disease, a sort of like similar to leukemia. So he decided to go with a bone marrow transplant, even though he was older and it was quite risky. So after like a very short period of time, it went south very quickly. It's interesting when you were talking about meeting me for the first time and feeling really kind of like grounded and calm. I feel like that has been like a very hard-fought, hard-earned skill in my life. I didn't always have that. I've had to learn how to kind of roll with that. But I think in the aftermath of my dad's loss, I lost a lot of that. There was a lot of like really just like struggling to be able to stay grounded and just feeling a kind of darkness that not everybody can handle.
You know, I lost my dad not long before. It had only been a couple years at that point. And I was taking care of him in some physically really super intimate ways, which is also something that we've shared. You know, just the amount of time it can take for the system to really digest that kind of parental loss, and just the weight of my own dad's death still felt fresh to me then. And I think, yeah, oh wow. I mean, I really, when you had said he was sick and then not long after that said he passed, just, yeah, having a real physical response to that.
Yeah, I mean, I think I felt in the wake of that, like needing so much from everybody around, like almost like you feel like a void where you're just like, you're needing all this support. After a while, it becomes hard to ask. But I think I was pretty good at accepting offers when they came along.
In Jay's moments of vulnerability and mourning, something unexpected happened. Care arrived, not from a lifelong friend, but from someone they were still getting to know. It started simply with breakfast, dropped off at their front door. Here's Mel.
I had brought some food over and had done a drop-off in the early days after he passed. I remember leaving food in a cooler for you, and I remember what the food was. It was bagels and lox.
There's just a food I have like a lot of memories of eating with my dad. So he was also Jewish, so it was like actually kind of the perfect thing to bring.
Not so long after that, you had invited me over to come and visit with you. And we spent a few hours just talking about your childhood, your dad, his illness, your family, your mom, your siblings, and who this, you know, parent was in your life, and you really let me into things that felt very private and very vulnerable, very formative for you. Like, you really let me into your, tender memories. And I know from experience the people to be let in those days are, that is a tender spot. I don't know that I've ever gone that deep with somebody so early on in a relationship. Like, that felt very special to me.
Yeah, it meant a lot that we were able to share that. And it really was remarkable and kind of like a leap of faith.
Faith, that act of trusting the unknown, cemented Jay's trust in their new friendship with Mel. And as their bond solidified, it would be tested again, not by an ending, but by a beginning. Because around the same time as Jay was mourning their father, they were also preparing for a profound transformation of their own.
I had recently come out as non-binary and was using a new name and new pronouns. And I had TAP surgery back in May. It's intense. You go under. It feels like if there are like these series of vice clamps across your chest. It's like a kind of a metaphorical and a literal rebirth. There was a period of at least 2 weeks where I really couldn't do much of anything with my arms. 6 days into that, my partner went to India for their little brother's high school graduation. So then it was like, focus on friends. And Mel was one of the people that showed up in like a really big way.
Well, y'all had like a really organized spreadsheet with like all the time day, like every day had different time zones so that it wasn't asking people to take on too much. It would be like, this person is going to bring breakfast, this person's going to bring lunch, this person's going to be dinner. You could sign up for multiple meals or for in-person shifts. There were care shifts.
It was really kind of like unbelievable, honestly, because sometimes, especially when I'm in a darker place, I can really feel very lonely. And so then it was like, oh, hey, look, there are all these people here, like really kind of showing up and putting a lot of work in. I felt like, oh, I am worthy of love.
I think that's mutual. And it involves touch. Like, I'm helping to redress a wound. There's so much trust involved there on a lot of levels by somebody who, still feels like newer friendship. To be given an opportunity to fulfill a need, to arrive and make your meals one day or help clean the cat box, help do some laundry. It's like, oh, thank God I'm enough. My love is enough in this moment.
A friendship that began as small squares on a screen, tested by loss, transformed by rebirth. Mel and Jay didn't avoid life's chaos. Instead, they built a relationship by showing up for each other through the thick of it all. They are friends after 40. For more stories of connection found during middle age, subscribe to Friends After 40, wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Robinette Jones. Thanks for listening.
Friends after 40. Friends after 40. Friends after 40. Friends after 40.